The Sixties Scoop refers to the mass removal of Aboriginal children from their families and into child welfare systems during the 1960s in Canada.
The Sixties Scoop didn't necessarily have a policy. It more explains a particular phase of history and not an explicit government policy.
In the 1950s and 60s, the government began phasing out residential school systems because the general public started to realize that it had a devastating impact on families.
The opinion of the public and the transition of public services in 1951 led to an amendment in the Indian Act, known as Bill C-3. The amendment enabled the province to provide services to Aboriginal peoples where services didn't exist federally.
Child protection was the main area of focus when the amendment was made. Afterwards, the government provided services to the families they deemed unfit.
From the 1960s to the early 80s, 18,000 First Nation, Inuit, and Métis children were seized from their homes, in most cases without any consent of their band or families, to be adopted or fostered to non-native homes all over Canada.
Minimal homes were founded by caring, well-institutionalized individuals like people hoped. Many homes were places of slave labor and mental or emotional abuse. Physical and sexual abuse was often covered up and hidden well, but it still wasn't uncommon for the children to experience.
Even the best of homes weren't healthy for Aboriginal children. Anglo-Canadian or Euro-Canadian foster parents weren't culturally equipped to create an environment in which a positive Aboriginal self-image can develop.
Children coming from Aboriginal heritage were denied from it. The government policy at the time didn't allow records to be opened unless both the child and the parent gave consent. It was difficult to get parental consent, so the culture of the child was often never confirmed.
Aboriginal children were moving into homes and being told they're now German, French, or Italian. This often led to behavioral problems in the children, causing an alternative foster or adoption relationship to break down.
Social workers were not expected to be qualified to deal with Aboriginal children. In result, social workers were unaware of the culture and history of the Aboriginal communities they were entered. What they thought of proper care was inclusive to middle-class Euro-Canadian values.
Social workers claimed to see poverty, unemployment, and addiction, so they felt the need to protect the local children within the communities. In most cases, they were going to poverty-ridden communities. A large number of Aboriginal people were apprehended from the 1960s onward. In the 1970s, more than one-third of all children in foster care or adoptive care were Aboriginal.
In 1990, Indian and Northern Affairs Canada created the First Nations Child and Family Services Program. It transferred administration of child and family services from province to the local band.
So, bands administer services according to provincial legislation and child welfare standards, and INAC helps fund the band's child and family agencies.
Bands have more control over their own protection services.
In many provinces and territories across Canada, a child is now entitled to know its background and cultural appropriateness as a part of the assessment and screening of any potential caregiver.
Sadly, the involvement of child welfare system is no less prolific in the current era. The 60s Scoop has merely evolved into the Millennium Scoop.
During the 1980s, the government changed child welfare laws so that bands could run their own social services, but problems similar to those seen in the 60s Scoop still happen today.
In June 2000, INAC and the Assembly of First Nations conducted a policy review and came up with 17 recommendations for improvement. In 2008, a report found that Aboriginal children are still overrepresented in care.
Improvements are always needed to ensure that Aboriginal children have adequate housing, safe food and water, protection from environmental contaminants, and access to health care.
The policies surrounding the 60s Scoop continue to be reviewed and revised. Despite the complexities of Aboriginal child welfare, things are better now than they were 50 years ago.